Sisters and brothers, welcome to Nolensburg Presbyterian Church. It looks like I know everyone in the room, but if I don't, my name is Pastor Curtis. We are so glad that you are here for Scam Aware, and we are so glad to have in our presence Adam Barr. He is the Westmoreland County Assistant District Attorney, so we are thankful for your time and your energy for this community and this area. Friends, let us pray, and then we will turn it over to Adam. Eternal and gracious Father, we are grateful for servants like Adam that serve this community. And we do ask that your Holy Spirit surround him tonight as he talks about techniques to avoid scams and also to empower us to maybe point them out to others and help others along the way. We ask that your spirits be with us here tonight. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. So with that being said, let us give Adam Barr a round of applause. Thank you, Adam, for being here this night. Come on forward, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that introduction. You okay if I just put my water here? And oh, I got to turn my mic on. I got to make sure everybody can hear me. Okay. There we go. Everybody can hear me okay? Okay. Good evening, everybody. As Pastor said, my name's Adam Barr. I'm an assistant district attorney in Westmoreland County. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you all coming. I've done similar presentations to this several times before. I can't tell you how much of an important topic this is. I'm sure you all know that. It affects everybody, and it's becoming more prevalent. Crime in this area is not going down. People keep getting targeted, young and old alike. Nobody's immune from it. But I think it's a worthwhile topic to keep abreast of, to talk about, keep your heads on a swivel about, because unfortunately, there's way too many people out there looking to take advantage of us, and it's not going away anytime soon. So I appreciate you all coming. Happy to be here. I'm pretty informal. So if you guys have any questions, if you want to interrupt me, ask a question, I have absolutely no problem doing that. Please do. If you have a personal anecdote or story, please do, because I'm sure there's many out there. I even have some myself. So please feel free to ask questions, interrupt during the presentation. But a little bit about me. I'm an assistant district attorney in Westmoreland County. I've been doing this for as a prosecutor for probably about 13 years now. Before that, I was with the State Inspector General's office in Harrisburg for a couple years after law school, but I've primarily been a prosecutor. Worked in the middle part of the state in Adams County for several years, and then moved out here for about the last 10 in Westmoreland County. I do all types of crimes. I just don't do merely financial crimes. I'll talk a little bit about our office here in a second, just to give you some background, but prosecute everything from, the thefts at Walmart all the way up to, fortunately, murders and child abuse. So I've seen a lot of stuff. There's still stuff I'm sure I haven't seen. But anyways, as you all know, Nicole Ziccarelli is our elected district attorney here. She is the chief law enforcement officer here in Westmoreland County. She runs the office. We have a victim witness team when these types of things or any type of crime happens against you. Our priority obviously is seeking justice, and then equally, trying to get some sort of compensation emotionally, physically, whatever it might have you, financially for victims in these types of cases. The district attorney's office here in Westmoreland County we're a third-class county, so we're made up of about 22, give or take, prosecutors, and we could always use more. Every county could in Pennsylvania, and I'm sure probably throughout the United States. We have about 15 full-time detectives in our office. We have a full detective unit, full arrest power throughout the county. They handle more of our complex, complicated cases in addition to the typical violent crime and things. We do have several detectives that do handle more of the complex fraud cases, elder abuse cases, and get referrals like that. We handle anything local police departments have a conflict with. such as, their department is investigating maybe some of their own, or they have a personal conflict, they can't investigate it, we handle those investigations ourselves. And then, of course, we prosecute all those crimes that come in our office. Anything that's filed by the local police department, Pennsylvania State Police, animal abuse officers, I'm trying to think of anything else. Those primarily, we have about 15 different magisterial district judges. Judge Judy Petrish obviously was formerly in our office. She just was elected here in Murraysville. All those cases that come through her office end up in front of a prosecutor's desk at one point or another. What is the role? I always start by talking a little bit about what the role of a local prosecutor and to some degree what it's not. We are like I said, chief law enforcement officers in the county. The district attorney is the chief law enforcement officer in the county. We prosecute all those crimes. There's very few crimes that we don't prosecute. There are crimes that other agencies prosecute on the statewide, federal level, even inside of our county. Of course, the Attorney General's office, they prosecute certain types of complex drugs crimes, certain crimes against children, but those crimes aren't exclusive just to them. But the Attorney General's office, obviously statewide, they have a Consumer Protection Bureau that they investigate civilly and criminal instances of theft or fraud involving deceptive business practices. We work day to day with the police. A lot of these scam cases do come primarily from the police, whether it's the state police, Murraysville Police Department, what have you, and they ultimately either are filed with the magistrate or in some way make it onto a prosecutor's desk to say, hey, is there enough evidence here? Can this crime be charged? What do you think? What can we do here? As far as disclaimers goes, just my presentation here, I always tell people it's somewhat general. I can't give you necessarily specific advice on any specific situation, particularly if it's civil in nature, any type of civil issues you have. But nevertheless, I always put that disclaimer out there because it's very difficult to answer personal questions that involve civil matters such as estates, power of attorneys, and things like that. But I'll do my best to answer any questions I have, go into detail about a lot of the different types of scams and whatnot. First of all, elder abuse, senior abuse, no distinction between the terms. I probably am going to use them interchangeably, but basically you have people who prey on certain aspects of the population. And scams, I talk about this initially, but scams are not limited just to senior citizens or older population groups. They very frequently target younger people too. Unfortunately, seniors, older adults tend to have certain characteristics about them, not necessarily their age, that make them more vulnerable or make them an easier target, I should say, for these scammers. And we'll talk about that. It doesn't have to be just one single act. It could be repeated acts. It can be someone you know very well. We're seeing that sometimes too. Something to be very cautious about, especially in the power of attorney and estate realm, fiduciary realm, where you have a caretaker or a family member has a caretaker. Unfortunately, we're seeing a good amount of that. I think that's always been the case, but I think it's becoming even more and more common, where you have maybe a caretaker who has some control over your finances, or at least some control over yourself or a family member's day-to-day activities. You might have access to a credit card to help buy groceries or go pick up something at the pharmacy, and before you know it, that's not a $200 charge at the end of the month for your groceries, it's a $2,000 charge for some stuff at Amazon. So we're seeing that more and more these days, so you have to be very protective of your information, be cautious about who you trust. And I will say that's a difficult thing to say. When I was going over this and I was trying to figure out how to word a few things, and that's one of them. I mean, we want to trust everybody. We want to trust our brother, our sister, our nephew, niece, and unfortunately in this day and age, there's skepticism there, and there almost has to be. You have to protect yourself. It's easy to trust somebody that thinks going to take care of you, especially as you advance in age, but unfortunately those people don't always have their best intentions or your best intentions in mind. So unfortunately have to be cognizant of who you're trusting with your information, who has access to your information, who you're sharing it with, etc. Just doing some research here. Before I do that, how many of you, I'm just curious, how many of you have had some sort of activity happen to you, whether it's a stolen credit card number, leaked password, money stolen from your account, or been victim of a scam? I'm just curious. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's probably a majority of you, and I don't think that's uncommon, unfortunately. I'd like to change that. I think everybody would, but I don't think the scammers are going anywhere anytime soon, and I think they outnumber us, unfortunately. So the best thing we can do is educate ourselves, and hopefully, with that education, empower ourselves to kind of combat these a little bit. Just doing some research, preparing for this, it's one of the most, according to the FBI, the most prevalent crimes now in the U.S. Senior citizen or elder abuse fraud is becoming one of the most prevalent crimes. Losses in the billions. I couldn't believe that when I heard that, but I took that right off the Department of Justice's website, and the number of victims a year is millions. That's a staggering number when you think about it. The amount of losses people suffer, life savings. I've seen it myself. As we go through, I'll tell you, share stories here and there that have come to my mind, but I can tell you, I've seen people lose 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 1,000, just in the matter of days or even hours. I remember several years ago, unfortunately, this is heartbreaking to even share, but just to give you a breadth of it, a woman in North Huntington had basically depleted her life savings. If I remember correctly, it was over $100,000, and she sent it to, somebody who was targeting her, a scammer, and she's never getting that money back. There's no way to trace it. She took it out of her bank account. Banks have become, and I'll mention this throughout, banks have become a little better, but you can't rely on somebody else. You have to be your own first defense. Banks have become a little better about asking people like, hey, why are you taking this amount of money out? Now, on one hand, people, it could be a little offensive. Hey, it's my money, you're the bank. If I want $20,000, give me my $20,000. But on the other hand, the bank's trying to protect you to some degree too, because they know once you submit that deposit receipt and they hand you a pile of cash, or or agree to wire it to somebody, wherever, that money's basically gone. Cash is one of the most difficult things to trace, especially the way these scammers operate, because once they have that money, they're gone. And it's not like they operate like, pick a corporation. They don't have a bank account that's been in existence for 30 years. They don't have, an office department, a clerical staff, etc. Once they get that money, they'll just close down. They'll send somebody, and this happens all the time, it'll be sent or wired to somebody in another city, New York, Atlanta, Philadelphia, you name it, and they'll have one of their runners go withdraw that money immediately, pocket it, and then they do what they do with it. They ship it to other places, send it to other people, but that bank account now is done. Their bank account now has no money left in it, and they close it, or they walk away from it. And at that point, how do you ever get your money back? You never see it again. It's a very underreported crime, too. I'll mention that, too. That's one of the tips I'm going to give you throughout this presentation. Even at the end, it's one of the most underreported crimes, and that's unfortunate. I think there's a lot of reasons. We'll talk about some of those reasons, but if you think you've been a victim or you suspect something suspicious, even with somebody else, a family member, a friend, whatever, speak up, say something, even if it's to another person, another congregant, a friend, a neighbor, like, hey, do you think everything's all right, with Susie? Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a minimum dollar amount that has to be involved?
No. It could be as little as a cent, I guess, technically. Of course, I've never seen a scammer try to get a cent. It's usually much more than that. But legally, criminally, no, there isn't a minimum dollar amount for somebody to be criminally prosecuted. Civilly, we'll talk about that a little bit, that makes a little bit of a difference, because if you're going to sue somebody to try to recover money in certain circumstances, that's a little different. To borrow a phrase someone told me a while ago, is the juice worth the squeeze? Are you willing to pay $5,000 in a lawsuit to recover $100 in lost money? And that's something you have to consider. Just a little bit real quick about criminal law, and it's a good segue. Criminal law obviously focuses on what we all expect. Criminal law is a violation of laws that have been enacted by our legislature. The legislature creates the laws. If the legislature doesn't say the law exists, it doesn't technically exist. Well, it doesn't exist. Those are your theft crimes, robberies, burglaries, murders, things like that. The legislature enacts those. They say what the elements of those offenses are, what the government has to prove to charge somebody and convict them of. And that obviously encompasses welfare fraud, Medicare fraud, you name it, drug offenses, you name it. The legislature comes up with those. Federally, there's various statutes federally, just like the legislature here in Pennsylvania, Congress comes up with. Those are your wire fraud, mail fraud. You see it all the time. People charged with tax fraud, securities fraud, you name it. Federally, crimes are prosecuted on a much larger scale. It's a division of resources. It's unfortunate, but it makes sense when you think about it from a practical matter. There's X amount of people like me, there's X number of police officers locally, but there's even less on an individual basis federally to charge and investigate these crimes. That's why it's unfortunate, but if you're the victim of a scam, a lot of people will say, well, it happened across states or it involved the internet. Can't the FBI investigate? They can legally. But they also have to use their discretion of where they put their resources, because they're going to investigate crimes that either cross multiple states or maybe cross multiple people or involve, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even internationally. Those are the crimes they're going to investigate. Unfortunately, the lower level crimes, or at least the more localized crimes, are going to be left to local prosecutors or even the Attorney General's office that are in the state. So you hear a lot about these bigger theft crimes or these bigger scam crimes. Not all of them get prosecuted by the federal authorities. And they do have some discretion. They can say, hey, we have X amount of resources. We don't feel that this case is prosecutable. We will solve it, or at least we will be able to find the person, because that's always a part of it. You still got to find the person, especially in the criminal context. You got to know who to file charges against. And that's one of the biggest problems I can tell you I have. It's not so much charging somebody, it's almost more or less finding the person who you want to charge. It's easy to get the person who came to your house and asked you for money, but unfortunately at the end of the day, they're usually just some low-level guy who's going to spend a couple months in prison and just be out doing it again. The person you want is the person who's got the boxes and you see in the movies the cash counters and stuff sitting in some dark room somewhere in New York City, processing all this. But those are the people that are elusive. Those are the people that are hard to find. Just real quick, make a distinction about criminal versus civil, because it's going to come up and be a little bit of a theme of the presentation. Crimes are prosecuted, obviously. The victim is not necessarily a party. They're not indispensable, don't get me wrong, but they're not necessarily a party. When my office or the Attorney General or even the United States, whenever they prosecute a crime, it's against a particular person or a particular entity even sometimes. But it's that action against them and for a violation of criminal law. I bring this up because it's important to know what the outcome is going to be. Obviously, if you're found guilty, whether it's a jury or a judge, however it might be, you plead guilty, you're sentenced to fines, you have to serve prison time potentially, be on probation, things like that. The primary goal of the criminal justice system, one of them, is to punish that person and hold them accountable. That's a lot different than the civil context, because we can get restitution. The judge can order somebody to pay restitution, but if you've heard the phrase, you can't get blood out of a stone, unfortunately, that applies in this context just like any other, because if you have a criminal defendant who's been found to have scammed you and he has no assets, he's homeless, he lives in his car, or a car for that matter, what are you going to get out of him? He's going to pay you back, what, $2 a month, $3 a month till the end of time to make up that $20,000 he stole from you. So that's unfortunately one of the downsides of the criminal justice system. It's designed for a lot of things, it's good at a lot of things. Recouping people's money in whole is not always one of those, unfortunately. Now, the civil side's a little different. If you have a dispute with a power of attorney, say somebody took a lot of money or abused your account, say, and they're a caretaker for somebody, that can be pursued civilly, whether it's in civil court, through the estate system, or a lawsuit. And those are a little different because you have a little more, I don't want to say teeth, but you have ability to go after that person and garnish their property, take their property, have the judge order them to pay a certain amount, even settle for a certain amount. I know that's not always, heartwarming, but at the same time, hey, the person will come up of 15,000 of the 20,000 they stole from you. Sometimes, attorney will tell you, hey, it's better to get 15,000 money in the hand than the hope for 20,000, 10 years from now. So I only bring that up just to give you some distinction about how these situations work, and how these scams even get to us in the first place, because you'll hear a lot, well, this is a criminal issue, this is a civil issue, we can't prosecute it, but maybe it's civil, and there's reasons for that, and those were some of the ones I'm talking about. The police bring these charges to us, and sometimes we look at them and say, hey, this can't be prosecuted, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And just real quick, I'll touch on one or two of them. You have to prove somebody acted with some sort of intent, or you have to have solid evidence against somebody. It's very difficult in the criminal justice system. It's our Constitution, so they require you prove a crime beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a very high burden, the highest burden you can have in the legal system. You hear about preponderance of the evidence in the civil system, 51-49. Well, what's easier, proving someone stole your money by proof beyond a reasonable doubt to 12 people, a jury, or proving that they took your money more likely than not? Obviously the latter. So we assess these cases, and sometimes it's unfortunate. We have to tell people, we know it happened. We just can't prove it happened. It's not a fun part of the job. It's not something anybody enjoys, but sometimes that is the outcome. Like I said, why are these people targeting certain groups? Why are they targeting seniors or senior citizens? Why particularly? There's a lot of different reasons. Like I said, it's not unique just to a particular group, but unfortunately for these reasons, it does tend to target older adults. Financial resources. There's a big difference, obviously, between even me or someone even younger than me. Let's say a 20-year-old college student and a 65-year-old retiree. Who has more money? Who has more assets? Who has more liquid property? It's going to be that older adult. They have money in the bank. They have a house. They have assets. They have cars. They have things that they can lose. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's a fact of life, older adults tend to be somewhat more isolated. Younger people tend to congregate more, and I don't mean that in the sense that older adults don't, but as we get older in age, we tend to become a little more isolated, and that's another reason, because these scammers, these criminals, hope that they catch you with your guard down, that you don't think anything of it, you have no one to tell, or you don't want to tell anybody. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for anybody. Nobody wants to admit that they were a victim in any situation, whether it's an injury crime that happened to you, someone who assaulted you, whatever. They don't want to admit either that they lost all their money. It's an embarrassing thing. And they're hoping that because of that embarrassment, these scammers think, well, you won't tell anybody, you won't go to the police, or you'll just let it go and just shrug your shoulders and hope it doesn't happen. Older adults tend to have better credit too. So they have more of those assets, they have more of that property that they can get. They have better, they have better credit cards, more limits that they can max out, et cetera, more things in the bank. One of the things I'll tell you at the end or throughout this is, if you think you've been scammed, please don't be embarrassed. And I say that for anybody, regardless of age group. Go to the police, go to a trusted friend, go to somebody and tell them, not only have you been scammed, but more importantly, tell them what happened. Take good notes, document everything. Take everything you can to the police, and hopefully something can be done. The one thing I'll say, it's unfortunate, but it's unfortunate fact that is just undeniable. Police and law enforcement, even me in the district attorney's office, we're reactive. To some degree, we put on these presentations, we talk to groups, we do our thing, but generally we're reactive. We try to react to what happened. We can't be necessarily proactive. We can't arrest people because they could commit a crime. We have to arrest people after they commit a crime. But in those kind of situations, the money's usually already gone. You've already been a victim. The sooner you can get to somebody, the sooner you can go to the police, the better. Especially with details, notes, who you talked to, what happened, because it makes it much more likely that it can be undone, maybe the money can be traced, or at the very least, we can arrest the person and hopefully hold them accountable, even if we can't get the money back necessarily, or all of it back. Everybody's connected too. That's another reason. And it spreads across all age groups. That's why I said that. I mean, everybody has access to the internet. I bet most people here, myself included, have at least a cell phone, a computer, a smart TV, you name it. There's so many ways to get in touch with people. You know, the days of just being able to, you know, you send a letter, you read the newspaper, you listen to the radio, those unfortunately or fortunately are well behind us. Everybody's connected. Everybody has some sort of online banking. Most people do, or at least access to it. Whether you use it or not, it's a different story, but at least access to it. You have online banking. You can pay your bills online. Whether it's your gas, you know, your utility bills, you can pay them all online. You know, school schedules are online. Everything is connected these days, and that is an attractive target to scammers. The age of technology has not only empowered us, but it's empowered them. You know, with the good comes the bad, and the bad comes the good. And they've taken full advantage of that, knowing that everybody out there has a smart device, has some sort of access to the internet, somewhere, has linked their bank account to something they can exploit. And that's a big part of it. They're this invisible man out there, and it's scary, but they exploit this. Direct communication, you know, everybody is, like I said, online. Emails, instant messaging. Probably something came out since we've been sitting here the last 20 minutes that we don't even know about, some way to communicate with people. But there's all these ways that quote-unquote invisible man can communicate with you. He can get in touch with you. And how do you know who's on the other end of that line? That's one of the biggest problems with this. You don't know who's contacting you. And it's so easy for them to pretend, especially with the age of technology being what it is, to, you know, spoof themselves to pretend they're somebody they're not. You know, these grandparent scams we'll talk about in particular, you know, they can create a computerized voice and pretend to be a grandson or a nephew or whatever. Hey, I'm in jail, I need money. And, you know, it tugs at your heartstrings and you want to help them out. You don't want to say no. But really, at the other end of the phone, it's some guy who, you know, sitting in some, you know, motel or sitting in an apartment building in New York who reports to some guy 8,000 miles away in a different country. And those are the people that are doing this. Computers have really opened up that. Unfortunately, I'd probably say a majority of the crimes, and that's probably not surprising, but a majority of the crimes I've seen locally have been scam-related crimes or theft-related crimes, involve the computers in some way or form. Smartphones, computers, whatever you want to call it, and the internet, involve those in some way, shape, or form. You don't see too many, we'll talk about them a little bit, but you don't see too many of the mass mailing scams, or the door-to-door solicitations. They don't get me wrong, they exist and they're a big deal, but I think the internet communication crimes, the online fraud is much more prevalent than, it's much easier to do than having to send somebody door-to-door to knock on your door to pretend to be a contractor or whatnot. Talk a little bit here about some of these scams, these exploitations. I'll caution you right up front, and this is, again, I said this early on, one of the things that's very difficult about scams in general to accept is not only losing your money or losing your sense of security, but it's losing that sense of trust with people that you've gained. It's obvious that, you know, you don't have any relationship with whoever it is in another country or another state or whatever who's scamming you. But what if, you know, what if it's a niece? What if it's a nephew, grandson, child, whatever, maybe your own child? And it happens. It's unfortunate to talk about. Nobody wants to acknowledge it, but it happens. I've seen it many times, whether it's a drug addiction, gambling addiction, or just flat out greed, kids steal from their parents. We've had many of those cases where, you know, mom or dad or both have done well for themselves financially, or saved every last penny over the years, and here comes Junior, you know, along at, you know, and, you know, whether he has a power of attorney, he's the executor of their estate, whatever, but he ends up draining their account. You know, $1 one day, $10 the next, and balloons and balloons until there's nothing left because he's lying to his parents, trying to convince them, oh, don't worry, I'm getting you groceries for $500 a day. You know, so it's happening, and unfortunate. That's one of the most unfortunate parts about these scams is they know no bounds. You know, lawyers, and I don't, you know, obviously have any problem degrading my own profession. There's scammy lawyers out there. I don't think that should be a surprise to anybody. If anybody's surprised by that, I got bad news. Contractors, you name it, doctors. you have to protect yourself, and you have to keep your guard up no matter who it is. It's easy to trust somebody because you feel that they're a professional, but unfortunately, it's like what's in their head, not their title, that really matters. So anybody can have a bad intention, and I warn people about that all the time because there's nothing putting past somebody. I've seen it happen. We don't have these too often, thank goodness. But at the end of the day, you go in and you need to have your estate drafted up, and the lawyer starts talking this, that product, or we need to do this, and before you know it, you've walked out of there with a $10,000 bill. Was that really necessary? Is that a scam? To some degree, it is, because he's walked your money away from you, arguably, not even arguably, unethically, and convinced you to give him money that he probably wasn't necessary. But guess what? He goes home at the end of the day $10,000 richer, and you go home at the end of the day $10,000 lighter. Doctors, selling certain types of insurance or selling certain types of prescription plans. The doctors working on the phones, they'll call people up at night, and almost like the old telemarketers did, and trying to get you to subscribe to something, and before you know it, your credit card's being charged $50 a day for some invisible product that you'll never see. So keep it in mind, trust, your loved ones, but at the same time, that doesn't mean don't verify and don't protect yourself at the end of the day. Anybody can do this. One of the things to look out for in these scams, before we talk about the particular scams, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what to look for, because I think we all know some of the signs. Your friend comes to talk to you after church, or they come to talk to you at the end of the day, and they say, hey, I gave $5,000 to somebody. Well, that's a pretty obvious, or at least potentially obvious sign of a scam. You're losing money. But what are some of the more non-obvious signs? You start seeing people change their appearance. Their hygiene's lacking. They're not coming out. They're not spending money anymore. Maybe their bank account's being depleted. They don't have the resources anymore. They're making new friends, unusual friends. They're spending a lot of time on the computer online they don't want to tell anybody about. They're making changes. This is a big one. Making unannounced, or I don't call it suspicious, but just last-minute changes to their will or estate, naming different people. Maybe it was their son before, but now they've changed it to a neighbor who lives up the street. Well, is that suspicious? It might be, and that might be a sign that something's going on there. Social isolation. They're getting calls from debt collectors. Your friend tells you, hey, I'm getting harassed by these debt collectors. Well, that's probably a good sign that there's probably not a lot of money left in their life, and that's why, because they're sending it to somebody who shouldn't have it. They're not keeping up with their home. They're getting phone calls constantly, because one of the things that I can tell you from firsthand experience, these scammers, it's almost like fishing. If they hit a good spot, they don't leave that spot until the fish dry up. Once they feel that they've contacted somebody vulnerable, they're going to keep contacting you until that money dries up, because why not? They've hit a big one. All they need is, they'll call, hundreds of people a day. If it's a larger organization, they'll call hundreds of people a day all over, not in any particular area, but they don't need hundreds of people a day. They don't need a quota to get rich. They just need one person or two people to latch onto them, or them to latch onto. That's all they need. So at the end of the day, they're trying to hit that jackpot, and once they find that fish, for lack of better terms, they don't leave it. They just keep going back and back and back for more and more until there's nothing left, and then they'll move on to somebody else. I talked a little bit about this. One of the first scams I kind of already mentioned is power of attorneys. Probably most of us know what a power of attorney is. I'm not a civil lawyer. I've never been a civil lawyer. I just know enough to be dangerous, I guess, with the term. But obviously, it's something that where you have somebody appointed to act on your behalf in your fiduciary affairs. And you have a fiduciary relationship with them. That person is entrusted to handle your everyday affairs. It's a legal document. They can be limited. Some of them can be limited to certain things, like maybe somebody will give you a power of attorney to do certain banking matters for you while you're undergoing surgery or in the hospital for a week. That's probably a big difference in naming somebody of a power of attorney that you met a week ago, and they have full and complete control over your affairs. Those are the type of people that are dangerous, because before you know it, they're taking that power of attorney down to your bank and saying, hey, don't worry, I'm John Smith, I'm her power of attorney. See, here's the document. And the bank knows none the wiser, they've proven who they are, and the document allows them to do pretty much anything they want. I'm gonna close her checking account. We're gonna go somewhere else. Can I have that all in cash? I need their investment account too. I need all that money too. We're gonna go somewhere else. And it happens. And that's one of the most terrifying parts, because once you've signed that, once you've given that person that authority, generally that's not a criminal matter. And I don't take pleasure in saying that, but unfortunately, you have to prove somebody did it intentionally and did it to deceive them. And sometimes we can prove that. But if you're of sound mind and you still gave that person of a power of attorney, a lot of times it's a civil matter, excuse me. It's not a criminal matter because it's very difficult to prove that you had sound mind, but that person still stole from you because you signed a document, a legal document that gave that person full control. It's much different if you're incapacitated or diminished capacity. That's no question, that's criminal. But it gets very gray area when you start talking about people who give a power of attorney or a sound mind and give that person full control over their affairs and they drain their account or misuse their money. That's a very difficult thing to come back from and charge criminally. A lot of times you're left with some sort of civil recourse. Yeah.
Is there, because of the advancement in technology and the scams, power of attorney, has there... I'm not loud enough? Tell my wife and kids that. I was saying, the advancement in technology and the types of scams, power of attorney, so that's established through a meeting with somebody, with a law degree and presented, and then it's documented. Is there anything that has advanced to the establishment of that now that it has gotten deeper and deeper and they've seen that people want to forcefully put somebody in a scenario? Is there any legal ramifications that's been created or discussed to add layers of that? Just like, when you have dual recognition of login of technology, is there any layer there?
I know what you're saying. Yes and no, not necessarily though. At the end of the day, it's still a legal document, just like any other. There's no sense of double backup. I mean, you could probably draft something like that into that where another...
Why hasn't the legal system established an advancement of that effort?
I think a big part of it is because, and I was just having a similar conversation with somebody recently, no matter where technology is, the law will always be years behind it.
How many years?
Many. Because I can tell you there's various crimes like this and just crimes in general that involve computers, that involve technology, that we would love our General Assembly to look at. And don't get me wrong, a lot of times they do, but it's glacial speeds compared to highway speeds. It takes years and years to get something passed anymore, as everybody knows. I'm not going to go down that road of politics, but it takes years and years in Congress or the General Assembly to pass any new laws. A lot of debate, people try to attach things, it doesn't get voted in, somebody has an opposition to it, whatever. And trying to get those additional things passed that protect people, it's not that they're not popular, it's the wording, it's the drafting of them. So I think it's years behind. At the end of the day, though, to protect people, if the attorney sees you and meets with whoever your fiduciary is going to be, and you're of sound mind, to some degree, of course, I would argue he has an ethical obligation, he or she, whoever the attorney is. They can't just, let you do anything without giving you advice. But at the same time, if you're of sound mind and you know what you're doing and they have no reason to question it, who are they to say, hey, I don't think you should put, Joe, your son, as your power of attorney? They might give you advice, but at the same time, there's nothing that can stop you from doing what you want to do with your legal affairs.
Right. Are you going to touch on, so right now there's a lot of stories that you see about fraudulent property transfers by somebody going and doctoring deeds, because they exist in paper form, right? They're not electronic. Where's that at? Is there technology coming that's going to help?
You would hope. I haven't heard of any. I know that they want that technology because, nothing stops, me from going to the courthouse, going up a floor tomorrow when I'm at work and, making up a deed. I mean, there's crimes resulting from that, but you can charge somebody with that, but that doesn't stop it from happening in the first instance, obviously. And you have to know about it,
So, how can a property owner or a homeowner best protect themselves in that manner? Because if you don't live in the residence, right, and you show up and somebody else has taken possession of it or sold it and it's transferred, but you physically have paperwork that showcases that you were the owner, you contact the police, that becomes a civil matter. The police can't do anything. So what?
They can do certain things. I didn't mean to cut you off. Not then and there.
So
You're,
you sit and wait, right?
you're not going to get your property back that night. Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
what legally, at least in Pennsylvania, can the person that knows that they have legal possession of that property do?
You're left with some sort of civil action where you have to either hire an attorney or create a court action essentially to go after that person and either correct it or get your property back. And whether that's through the sheriffs who enforce civil court orders, going to the property and kicking them out, which is a possibility, but, pains me to...
As a private citizen, though, if you possess the property legally and know that somebody's there fraudulently, in the state of Pennsylvania, what can be done on that citizen's own behalf right then and there?
So if you have a good police department or good officers responding, and don't get me wrong, all of them are good, but just like everything out there, there's certain ones who go above and beyond, and there's certain ones who do their job, and I'm not discrediting anybody. But at the end of the day, if you have a good officer who comes out, hopefully they will see what's going on, and they will help you in terms of that night, kicking that person out, saying, hey, you're getting charged with criminal trespass, burglary, whatever. I'm arresting you. You're leaving. He's coming back. That's obviously an ideal scenario. On the other end of the spectrum, a lot of times they'll say, hey, we got to figure this out. We're going to investigate it. You go home for the night. He's going to stay where he's at. We're going to look at this paperwork and see who's really supposed to be there. That's a possibility too, don't get me wrong. I wish I had better news, but that's the current state of affairs. I know the legislatures in many states have looked into this. It's a big thing, like squatting, taking over people's possession. That's become a huge thing just in the last several years. I don't know what solutions they have for it other than the crimes they already have. I'm sure they're trying to come up with one. I think the biggest concern a lot of the legislature have, a lot of law enforcement has, myself included, one thing you want to prevent, it's easy to say, go retake that property. And I don't blame anybody for feeling that way, but you also have to be careful. Not everybody's in that same physical or ability, but you also want to prevent another situation from starting where somebody gets hurt or killed. Even if it's the scammer, you don't want to murder in your house. So you don't want a murderer to have to investigate because eventually somebody's going to get charged or somebody gets beat up over it. It's still going to be prosecuted, and you might even be prosecuted. No guarantee, but depending on how the situation resolves. So you don't want self-help, we call it, necessarily being the first course of action. But I know the legislatures have tried to tackle that problem. I haven't heard of anything being passed, though, to address it specifically.
And the real estate industry is years behind with establishing anything.
Yeah, at the end of the day, paper records are paper records. A lot of things have been digitized, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, everything exists in a filing cabinet or a digital filing cabinet in that recorder of deeds office. It doesn't necessarily stop anybody from, filing a false deed or filing false paperwork. Again, it's a crime, but it doesn't help you in that very moment. They're going to have to come up with, you suggested, like a two-factor authentication or some sort of technological means to prove who you say you are, beyond just saying, hey, here's a driver's license. I promise this is who I am. We're getting to that point. Let's see here. Move on from power of attorneys. Quick here. With power of attorney, one thing I wanted to say about this, a few tips with these, and again, I'm not a civil attorney, I don't do power of attorneys. Get your procedures down from your bank on what they require to be verified. Know where you're banking. Obviously, most of us do, but I'm willing to bet most of us don't have or know on a daily basis what the bank's procedures are when somebody's presented with a power of attorney. That's a good thing to know. Are they going to ask for additional documentation? Are they going to ask for a second person to be there? Know that information. Know who you're giving that power of attorney to. I talked a lot about that. I'm not going to, go into any more detail about that, but, be cautious. Make sure who you're giving it to is justified, but also you can trust. Nobody wants to talk ill about family or, bring up people's past, but maybe if they have had a gambling addiction in the past, maybe that's not a person you want being your power of attorney. Maybe they beat it 20 years ago, but is that someone you really want, though, to trust with your power of attorney? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be the one out of the money, not them. You can always change your power of attorney, too. If you think there's a problem with who you have or you want to change it. There's nothing stopping you. Identity theft, I'm only going to talk real quickly about this because it's not so much of a scam. A lot of as much as it's just a crime in and of itself, a lot of identity theft we're seeing is mostly from people, credit card numbers compromised, lost wallets, things that are posted on the internet that people were able to piece together. Identity theft was the big crime when everything became digital, and unfortunately fortunately, it's taken a back seat. Usually it's a result of your credit card numbers being posted or somebody finding them out. The good news is, I think, at least in my personal experience and professional, I'll say, a lot of banks have become really good about refunding your money if your credit card's been used fraudulently online. I don't think I've had it happen to me. I don't think I've ever had a problem with my bank calling them and saying, hey, that wasn't a legitimate charge. It's surely an inconvenience, don't get me wrong, because you've got to change all your numbers, get a new credit card. But in my experience, a lot of the banks have been very good about refunding people's money, giving them their money back, because the benefit to that, too, is you get your money back. Even if somebody's criminally charged as a result of that, the bank becomes the victim. Sometimes they want their money back, sometimes they don't. That's up to them. But it's a lot easier for you to be satisfied if you've gotten that money in hand than it is to try to get it from that defendant, like I said initially. Common scams, we're finally there. Romance scams. I don't know if any of you have heard about these romance scams, sweetheart scams, we call them. They are becoming really prevalent, especially with technology and the online dating and stuff. And I've seen various examples of them where people are basically scammed in relationships. There is, as you probably all know, I'm sure you all know, there is nothing stopping you from being anybody you want any day of the week online. You can have a different personality every day, different picture on that profile, whatever. And there's really, going back to your point, there's no way to verify who that person really is. And the thing about romance scams, and I've seen this, I'll tell you a quick story in a second about them, but what I've seen is they play on those emotions and those people who want a relationship very well, because nobody wants to believe that if it's a man, that very attractive woman online is not really, his soon-to-be girlfriend. Nobody wants to believe that person you've been communicating, because they drag you along. This isn't something that happens at 6 o'clock at night and before you know it, your money's gone. It can, but usually it's a couple-week courting process, no pun intended, where they get you comfortable, and then eventually, before you know it, you're going to Best Buy and shipping stolen packages for them. I've seen that happen. A couple of years ago, I had a case, and I feel bad for the guy. He was, just like I said, he was courted over a long period of time by someone online who he thought was a future girlfriend, communicated with him, and they were having him go, and she, guaranteed wasn't a she, was going and having him pick up packages for him and ship them places. Well, it was stolen property. He was picking up his property other people had stolen, and he was basically the conduit shipping this property. And just to give you an example of how much these tug on your emotions, if this doesn't hit home, I don't know what will. So a friend of mine was the investigator. He was a trooper. He called me about it, and I said, under the circumstances, he's not out any money. Well, he's out of his time. Yeah, he received stolen property, but let's not charge him. Just bring him in and tell him, hey, please explain to him, basically, this is a scam. The people you're talking to is not your girlfriend, and unfortunately will never be your girlfriend, and explain that to him. Okay, and that's what we did. 3 weeks later, I get another phone call. Hey, he did it again. I said, what do you mean he did it again? Didn't you talk to him? Yeah, I talked to him. I said, you talked to him exactly what we talked about. Yep, I told him it was a scam. I told him not to do it. I said, what did he do? Same exact thing. Same exact thing. Same person was communicating with me. He was convinced. There is no way this police officer's right. Did it again. Don't hold this against me. The ending of this story, I still couldn't get around. I think we charged him, but let him get ARD or diversionary program, or maybe we didn't. But I felt bad for him in a way. But How do you do that a second time after the police have told you, don't do this, we're not going to charge you with any crimes, please just don't do this again, and he still does it. But they hang on your heartstrings. It's very common, and that's one of the types of scams. And there's many variations of this scheme. A lot of times it's money, though. That was kind of a unique outlier. I haven't seen that too much, the shipping of packages, shipping of stolen goods. Usually it's money. You know, they court you again online. And what they do is they come up with this sob story, and it could be anything. I'm just going to throw one out there. You know, hey, I'm a single parent. You know, I'm a single mother. My poor son, he's injured. He just needs more money. You know, we need to get him this procedure. And you're trying to build a relationship. You want it to exist, and before you know it, you're sending him money. And once you get that hook in you, go back to the fishing metaphor. You get that hook in you, you're going to keep doing it. And then they tell you, hey, you know, thank you so much. You know, I'm so glad you sent that money. You know, my son got his surgery or his medical procedure done, but guess what? On my way home, my car broke down. I just need $500 for a new, or $1,000 for a new alternator. And guess what? You've been doing this for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple months now. You're going to send it. Your heart's attached to this person, even though it shouldn't be, and you're sending them that money. And this goes on. And the sad part about this story or this example is, who's going to stop you? Hopefully you have a loved one, but a lot of times people don't know. And if they don't know, what's going to happen? They're going to nobody's to step in and going to say, hey, don't send this person the money, because it's online. It's not like your son or your parent, whoever it might be, knows you're going out to meet with this person at a restaurant every week, you know, going out to dinner. You're doing it all online, so nobody knows about it. And before you know it, you're depleted. You're done. Your money's gone. It's a very sad situation. The romance scams, the sweetheart scams, whatever you want to call it, they're very common. I'll tell people right now, you know, whether you use online dating or however, you know, if you don't or you know someone who does, never give out your personal information online. Don't give out anything. And I hate to say this, the scammers can find it anyways. Don't give them a heads up. You know, they can find out who our friends, our family, our kids are, dates of birth. It's not easy, or not hard, excuse me. Everything's public these days. We call it open source information. We use a lot in law enforcement, and go ahead, yeah?
They call and they say, oh my, I'm loud enough. Okay, they call and they say, this is your credit card company. I need to fix something for you on what I've told my mother-in-law to do is to say, oh, okay, so there's a problem. I'll call you right back.
Mm-hmm. That's very good advice.
I'll call you right back.
100% good
And that
advice.
way you're calling your company and finding out if there's any problem.
Because you're calling that number on the back of the card, and you know that number goes to a correct person. When they call you, they're hoping you fall for that, and you give them the information. Hey, by the way, we're trying to fix this. What's that verification number on your card? And if you give it to them, you know, 10 seconds later, they're purchasing stuff off the internet or, you know, depleting your card or bank account or whatever. On that same topic, I'll say, I don't know if anybody, I'm sure a lot of people do. I know some people don't, you know, shop online. Be careful, not necessarily shopping, but how you pay for things. Use a credit card. Don't use a debit card. They have much, much better protections. Debit cards generally don't come with anywhere near the protections, really, because it's just linked to your checking account. It's much harder to get the bank to give you any money back, if they even will, on a debit card than a credit card. Yeah, it's a hassle. Yeah, nobody wants to pay. But if you're paying the bill, you're not getting charged interest. Pay with a credit card. The protections are so much more on a credit card, and the help you can get, the assistance you can get if you're scammed or your identity stolen, than with a debit card. So don't link your debit card to anything online. I know I don't. If I can't do that, I'll send them a check, because I don't want to take that risk. Make your social media private or limit it to certain people. This kind of is just general advice with this social media scam. Limit who can see it, because those scammers use that to their benefit till the end of the time. They go on there and they troll for information. They're finding out your date of birth, or you know what your favorite car is. They find out who your kids are, where you grew up. All that information, if it's public, is out there. And another component of that is, guess what a lot of those security questions on your account are? Where'd you go to high school? What's your high school mascot? What was your first car? Favorite dessert? I don't know. But guess what? If your Facebook account is public, it's not too hard to figure out where you went to high school. And within 10 seconds, hit the Google, What's the mascot? I went to a place called Hickory High School. What's the mascot for Hickory? That's a hornet. Guess what? That's a pretty easy security question that is defeat. They could probably find out if they're really good. Then they're going to find out who your mother's maiden name is, because I'm sure you have relatives you're friends with on Facebook and in your friend list. They're going to find out your mother's maiden name. Probably easy to find out your birthday, or at least the month and the day, because you probably have happy birthday posts or something on Facebook. So keep that information private, or at least protect it to people you trust, or only people you're legitimately friends with on Facebook.
He's It's important that you use the microphone because of the live stream, so that the people that are watching can hear the question.
Not a question, just a comment on that. Looking at social media, especially if you have your date of birth listed and your geographic region, and especially where you went to high school, it is very easily, there are algorithms that can calculate to a very high percentage what your social security number is, because it's based on age and geography. So just having a couple little bits of information public, your social security number can be figured out pretty easily.
There's whole companies out there these days who do nothing. You'll see them. If you just, I don't know what you'd really put in, but Google background check or people research. There's whole companies. One of them's it always comes up in one of the top hits, Peekaboo, something like that. But anyways, their whole business is based upon trolling the information and getting information on people, dates of birth, friends, where you've lived, all your past addresses, because eventually, even though you can see some of it for free, they want people to purchase it. And they do that because it's a good business. And if you purchase that for $10 and you're able to contact somebody and you know everything about their life, it's not going to be hard to convince them to get involved in some sort of scam. So be careful where you post that information. Unfortunately, the more prevalent you are online, the more likely it's going to get out there. There's not much you can do about it these days. But like I said, there's whole websites and companies devoted just to aggregating, is the word I was looking for, aggregating all your personal information and having it in one nice, complete little package there. All your addresses, phone numbers. I mean, go home and put your name in and it'll all pop up. You'll find a whole profiles for your name. You'll probably recognize a lot of the phone numbers. It's not always 100% accurate, but in my experience, it's 80% accurate a lot of the times. There might be a few missing addresses, but a lot of them are pretty accurate. Tech support scams. I'm sure you've heard of these because even some of our governments locally have been hit with these ransomware scams where you're minding your own business on the computer, researching your favorite football team, what have you, checking the Steelers lineup for Sunday, and before you know it, your computer gets this giant pop-up and you're locked out of it. It says you have to pay ransom to get it back on. Those are becoming a lot more prevalent. Those are not something that we have good success prosecuting. If you finding the person who did it, because a lot of times it's overseas, and finding and tracking that person down is generally nearly impossible. But I've seen in the news, Allegheny County got hit with it. I want to say it was Beaver County. I know Washington County sticks in my head, and I know at least two of those places paid the ransom, because their whole computer network, government computer networks were shut down. They felt that they had no choice. They probably didn't, because their computer systems were locked out. They had no choice, either pay the ransom or, not have county government able to function. It's a sad state of affairs. That's a big one. Be very careful what you click on, the sites you visit, etc. Sorry, did you have a question? Oh, I thought okay, I'm sorry. Be very careful what you accept emails from. Double check the email address. This is we're tested at work all the time. We have a very proactive IT department. They're constantly trying to send us emails to see if we're clicking on them when we shouldn't be. And they're really good at it, I'll be honest. Even I fall for one every now and then because it's something innocuous you don't think twice about. You get this email and it says it came from hrresources.com. Well, it doesn't trigger in your mind, hey, that's not my county's email address. But it says, click here to check your available leave balance. Oh, I want to know how much time I can take off. Everybody does. But guess what? You're clicking on that link, and before you know it, they're stealing information from you, or you're giving out them information that can be used to scam you. So be very careful. Those phishing and spoofing scams where they, what's a good example? What's a really good example? You'll get an email, Visa, maybe your bank. Let's say you bank at PNC. Well, it's PNC.com, I think. Probably is. PNC.com. Well, what if you get an email from PNC.us? You probably don't pick up on the end of that domain as US, not .com. And before you know it, you're clicking on it because these scammers are good. They'll look at PNC's website, they'll recreate it to a T. And it looks just like it, but really what you're doing is you're entering your username and your password into somebody else's website and they're scamming you. Be very careful. Look where that is. Look at the end of the domain. Look at where those emails are coming from. If you don't trust it, delete it.
Adam, may I
Yeah.
make 2 suggestions?
Yeah, sure.
So just took a church security management course last fall. So if you receive a text message that seems suspicious, do not respond. Don't even type in the word stop, because when you do respond, that now lets the person on the other end say, this is a live wire. This number is active and connected to a person. So if you have an iPhone, just go to your inbox and just slide over junk and report.
Yep, I do the same.
But do not respond. Same with emails. If the email even looks a little bit suspicious, check the address. Many times it will say Kurt Paul, but it'll be gobbledygook@gmail.com. Actually, Miss Betty invited me to some sort of luncheon a few weeks ago, and I typed in my username and password to get into my Google account 3 times, and then I was like, wait a second, why is Betty inviting me to lunch? But it read just like Betty, and then I called Betty and say, Betty, did you send this email? Because now they have my username and password.
Yep.
And she did not send me the email, and sure enough, when I carefully looked at the address, it was copied and pasted from Nolensburg, but just 1 letter was changed.
Yep. It's very easy to get, because you don't check that last part of the email address. You see it's from, Adam Barr. Oh, I know Adam Barr. But if you don't check all of that email address and you look at that email and it looks just like an official email, you're going to be inclined to click on it, or at least you're not going to think twice because you're trusting and you don't want to think it's a scam. Happens all the time.
I just have one comment. Never, ever, ever, ever respond to a phone number on an email. Ever.
Yep, that's good advice too.
Yes, sir.
I will say with that too, one of the things to watch out for, most banks will tell you this, most companies will tell you this, they're not contact you via text message for something. Your bank is not going to text you to tell you, hey, might be a problem with your credit card. That's going to be a phone call most likely, and something you can verify. So be very cautious of those text messages where they, hey, click this link to fix your credit card information. Very, very, very likely a scam. Not even very, it is a scam. It's not going to happen. Your bank's not going to get a hold of you like that. Your utility company isn't going to send you a text message to tell you that you need to log into your account to fix your password. Not happening. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to share a scam that happened to my in-laws, and it was by phone call. So they obviously had all of the account information. They said they were from Norton Antivirus or something like that. They called their home phone and said, we have noticed some suspicious behavior on your computer. Can you go and log in? And they did, and suddenly the people who were on the phone had access to their computer, and they took money right away. So it might even be a phone call asking you to get onto your computer.
Yep.
And I'll just share one other thing. I had some people that I know who also got scammed, but they were being phished. It was time and time again. So they were embarrassed at first, but then they thought, no, I'm not going to be embarrassed. So the next time the scammers called, they called the police.
Yeah.
Kept them on the phone until the police got there. Now, I don't know if that was helpful in any way, but that's what the police had told them to do. So if you feel like, if you make the mistake once, there might be a way that you can actually help the next person before it happens
Yeah, that happened here recently. It's if you see the news tonight, or if you go online to the Trib, there's a news story about 3 people in North Huntington we just filed new charges against. It reminded me of this story, is that the scammer showed up at their house. It was one of these grandparents scams, and they actually showed up. The husband chased them away. Well, didn't chase them away, came out at gunpoint, so things escalated quickly, but they were trying to scam them on one of these grandparents, your grandson's in jail scams that are very prevalent. I'm going to get to those next. Very prevalent these days, but they had already scammed a couple other people in Allegheny County, and these were the next target, and they tried to get money off of them. Fortunately, these people were savvy enough, they realized there are certain things you can pick up on. If you're paying attention, you'll pick up on them. Like in this case, they said, you need to come to the 7th precinct in Greensburg. Well, we don't have precincts in Westmoreland County, let alone in Pennsylvania. Maybe Philadelphia does, but we don't have precincts. So they went to the police department and they said, no, this is a scam. But these people actually showed up at their house to collect the money. It's scary. It's scary. They were just arrested again. They scammed a woman in Squirrel Hill out of $20,000 though. And I don't have high hopes, given who these people are. They don't come across as people who have what I would call liquid assets. So I don't have high hopes she's going to get her money back, but at least at the end of the day, we can charge her. We ended up charging them here for a variety of reasons, because hopefully we punish them a little bit more in Westmoreland County, hopefully. Yeah, go ahead.
You brought up the grandparents.
Yeah.
Scam, which is a pretty common one. We had such a call probably 2 years ago, and the line was, this is Hunter. I've just been in a car wreck. I was drinking. They have me in the jail, and they said what town it was in Ohio, and gave it to my wife, and she came to me and I said, if he was drinking and he's in jail, he can sit there.
No,
Don't drive over.
that's 100% true.
And then the other thing we did, what my wife did, which I thought was really good, is she went to all of our grandchildren and gave them a keyword. And
That's
then a
smart. That's good.
password, because she got scammed. She got another
Yeah.
call, and she said, what's the name of your cat?
Oh, yeah.
And they couldn't,
That's smart.
yeah, it was very smart, I think, and I give her a lot of credit
Yeah.
sometimes.
I said the same thing. I said that to my wife once. Same exact thing. I said, now my daughter's young, but eventually, if someone calls and says she's in jail and she needs bail money, just tell them not to call again. I hope she's okay. Because that's what they do. They play on your emotions. You don't want to tell somebody, you get this call. And usually, it's not always jail, but that's a big one. It could be a couple other things. It could be they're in an accident, like you said. It could be that they're in some sort of other kind of trouble. But a lot of times it's jail, and it's about bail money. And I will tell you this, and researching, updating my outline for this presentation, computers, as I've said many times, as we all know, has changed everything. Especially with the capabilities computers, AI is the new thing now. It doesn't take much to troll the internet, find all that personal information, find your grandson's name, date of birth, home address, even spoof the voice of a young child or, and a young adult. And that's what they're doing, and they're playing on your heartstrings because you're at home and you're thinking, I don't want him to sit in jail. Well, I don't know. You and I do, so we're good. But the rest of you don't want your nephew to sit in jail, or he's in an auto accident, he needs a bus ticket home, and he needs you to send the credit card information. That's what they want, and they're playing on your heartstrings, and they want you to do that. And it's, again, one of the most prevalent, because all they need is 1 or 2 people, every so often to fall for it. They probably called 50 people before you, and there'll be another 50 after. But it doesn't matter, because they just need a couple people to give them that money, not everybody. But this is a very prevalent one. This grandparent scam is very prevalent in Westmoreland County. Be very cautious of it. For some reason, Western Pennsylvania in general, it's been targeted. We've had whole crime rings. The FBI just prosecuted somebody, a couple people several years ago who I think by the time they were done, and believe it or not, the state police did a fantastic job. They ended up like $200,000 in cash they were at the airport with, on their way out of town, of course. But all because of these grandparent scams. That's how they were getting their money. playing on your emotions, trying to get you to feel bad. That's a very, very common one. Even if you have any doubt or you can verify, I mean, call, if they say, hey, I'm in the local jail and, I don't know, Asheville, North Carolina. Even if you want to believe it, call down there. Hey, is my grandson in jail? I'm going to bet dollars to donuts that he's not in jail and you're being solicited by a scam. So there are ways to verify it, even if you want to believe it. But the other thing is, get the person's you don't have to. I'm saying, you're going to know right away if it's a scam. Okay, let me call my daughter. Let me call his mother. I'll call you right back. They don't want you to hang up the phone because they're going to lose you after that. They're going to move on to somebody else. You'll know right away it's a scam. Don't play into their games. This one is so prevalent. Again, they play. They hope to. Not only the emotions, one of the other things I've seen is they're hoping they get somebody on the phone, and again, I'm not discriminating, but an older adult, a senior citizen, maybe you're hard of hearing, maybe you don't hear all the words right, and you're thinking, did I hear that right? He's in jail? And they're scamming you right then and there. But again, be very cautious of that. Be cautious. Don't let people come to your house. Don't give them your address. Don't give them any of that information, because again, it's going to sound great. It's going to sound legitimate, but it's not. And they want to come collect that money, and the last thing you want to do is have them come to your house. All that information about your grandson's age, date of birth, where he goes to school, that's all publicly available. Whether it should be or shouldn't be, it's all somewhere online. If they're doing their job to research it and come up with that information, so when they call you, they can hopefully get you to get that money. The government impersonation scams. This is another one we've had a huge problem with in Westmoreland County, next to the grandparent scams. I can't say which one's more prevalent than the other, but the government scams, the IRS is a big one. The jury commissioners call you, you missed jury duty, you need to pay a $500 fine or $1,000. That's a big one. Trying to think what are the other. IRS, Medicare, we're calling from Medicare, there was a problem with your plan, you need to send us money to fix it and get your account back up to good status. Social Security numbers. I said your sheriff's office allegedly will be calling, you missed a court, or you got have an unpaid traffic citation from 12 years ago. Well, you don't remember, probably don't remember what happened 12 years ago, or maybe you did get pulled over. Maybe they found a record of you, what they probably did and what they usually do. They found a record on some public access website where you did get pulled over. You were charged with speeding or something, a traffic ticket. And they're going to exploit that. Hey, you never paid. This is, Sergeant Smith, I work for Judge Joe's office. You never paid that ticket. And unfortunately, it's been sitting. You better clear this up. You're going to have to send us $15,000 in late fees. You better send it, because otherwise we have people sitting outside. They're going to take you to jail. Well, you're gasping, and that's what they want, because they want you to play off that emotion and think to yourself, oh boy, I don't want to go to jail. Oh, I better send them some money so I don't go to jail. Because the other thing is, what happens, I've seen this happen in Westmoreland County. What happens is you'll say, some people will say, I shouldn't say you and generalize, but I mean that singularly. The person will say, I can't give you $15,000, I can give you $8,000. Now, if it's legitimate on the other end of the phone, they'd say, no, you owe the $15,000. When has the government ever taken less than what they're owed? It doesn't happen. They'll take more than what they're owed, but they're not going to take less. The scammer's going to say, well, we'll put this on hold for $8,000 and you'll get us the rest later. They just made $8,000. So be cautious of those. Those people, I can tell you 100% in Westmoreland County, unless it's a prosecutor, I do text witnesses and victims, but it's for me. Nobody in the court, nobody's reaching out to you via text unless it's something you signed up for. Maybe you signed up for a program or something. I think their election bureau might, I don't know. Point is nobody in the sheriff's office is texting you about warrants. Nobody in the jury commissioner is texting you about warrants. We're not up to date in Westmoreland County just yet, where we can text everybody their summons and everything. Maybe that'll come one day, but you're still going to get it in the mail just like a normal court process. These people, the IRS is not texting you. I can guarantee you that. They'll come find you if they want to find you, and they do a pretty, unfortunately, good job of it. But if they want their money, They're not going to text you for it and have you click a link and pay on your phone with Apple Pay or with your credit card information. Everybody knows that's just not how it works. But again, they play off that human emotion, that fear that you're going to get arrested, you're going to go to jail, you're going to lose all your assets or whatever. They'll tell you they're going to garnish your investments, your retirement account if you don't pay this. Be very cautious of those. I haven't seen the Medicare ones too much where they call and they say you're going to lose access to Medicare, Medicaid, whatever. I haven't seen that. I know it's out there. Other states have had that happen where they have a scam where they say, hey, you're going to get cut off, your prescriptions aren't going to go through, your doctor won't see you, you better pay us. Again, the government, we're not that far up in technology where the government's texting you or sending you links to fix your account on your phone. It just doesn't happen that way. Healthcare scams, the federal government sees these a lot more where there's these scammers that are trying to get you to sign up for healthcare plans. They try to get you to sign up for a subscription, and that's a little more dangerous because the allure to it is you're not getting sticker shock of that $10,000 up front. They're saying, hey, this is a great healthcare plan, it's right up your alley, and they'll talk to you forever. And they'll probably find out online that you've had a medical issue or you've seen so-and-so doctor, whatever, but what they do is they try to get you to sign up for one of these supplement plans telling you it's going to cover everything, you'll never pay a copay again. They make it sound like the best thing in the world. If you take one thing from this presentation, take away the old adage that if it's too good to be true, it is. That's the case for every scam. And they'll tell you, you're never going to pay a copay again, just, it's only $19 a month. It's only $19.99, the old infomercials. And, they get someone to pay it, but guess what? It's $19.99 and they charge it to your card and you have no way of stopping that. And they just keep collecting and collecting payments and you get nothing out of it. You'll never get anything in the mail. You'll never hear from this person again, except they're going to be laughing all the way to the bank when they collect their money and, go back to wherever they're from. Yeah.
When I get a call, if I don't know the
Wait a second, Bill.
If I don't know the person, I don't answer the phone. Mm-hmm. And then I've got the ID and I've got the message. And then I can verify it or I can decide I'm not calling back.
100%. Judy and I were talking about that before we started about, I don't answer my phone for numbers I don't know either. I let them leave a voicemail. If it's really my doctor, if it's really, if it's really a government agency, they'll leave a message. They're not just going to hang up. They'll leave a message, and that way you can verify it because you can call them back, not at the number they left, but the number that you find online or wherever, on the paperwork you have at home for your bank. Call them back at that number, and hey, did you call me? No. Well, I guess I'm deleting that message. That's 100%. 100%. Think about it. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And one other thing about that is one of the best tips I can give you too is never rush into anything. Never feel like the proverbial guns to your head to do something because that's what they want. They want you to think that this is a dire situation where you have to make a decision in the next 10 seconds because if you don't, something bad's going to happen. What they don't want you to do, obviously, is sit there, think about it, contact a friend, contact the police because they've lost all their pool at that point. You have no emotional attachment and you're going to verify it. That's a big one. Charity scams, real quick. Charity scams are a huge one, with the unfortunate devastation that, we've had in North Carolina and the South. That's a big one right now. But at any type of world disaster, you name it, these people come out of the woodwork like termites in an old barn house. And they prey on people because they make, again, emotions. They make you feel bad. They want you to feel bad. Hey, donate to this cause. We're going to save so many people, get so many people food and shelter. If you don't know the charity or if you've never heard of them and they're soliciting you, it's probably not a good idea. It's probably something to stay away from. If you want to donate money, and we all do, or donate resources, donate time, there's ways to proactively do that. You can seek those people out. I don't know of any charity that's going to turn away money. So if you're seeking them out to give them money, whether it's the Red Cross, United Way, the big ones, whatever it is, there's ways to give them money without them contacting you to solicit it. So be very cautious of those. Again, anytime a world disaster, national disaster, regional, whatever it might be, happens, like we're happening now, they come out of the woodwork. I'm not surprised. How are we on time? I wanted to talk real quick. You tell me. I'll go as long as you want me to, or whatever you want me to do. Nobody wants to stay here with me all night, though, I'm betting. That's fine, yeah, that's perfect. One of the other ones, these lottery scams, again, don't see them too often in Westmoreland County. Nobody, I'm not aware of, nobody requires you to pay money up front to get your winnings. Be very cautious, and this plays into something I said very early on. It's not uncommon to get somebody either pretending or even a real attorney. They'll call and they'll say, hey, I represent so-and-so, or I represent the lottery. I'm just trying to get you your money. You won $75 million. You're going to get that money, but unfortunately, you have to pay a processing fee up front of $7,500. Wow, well, I do like money, and $75 million is a lot of money. You don't want to send them that money, but you think, oh, they're an attorney. No, I'm not aware of any, and I'm willing to bet money that none exist. You win a lottery prize, but you have to pay them for it. It just doesn't happen. So be very cautious of that. Do not pay them money to get winnings, because you'll probably think to yourself, oh, I play the lottery. I do buy lottery tickets. I did buy a lottery ticket for that Powerball. Maybe I did win. Don't fall scam for it. You don't have to pay them to get your money. One of the things I really want to hit on, because we've all been some sort of victim to this, or at least it touches on somebody we know, are these home improvement frauds, these home improvement scams. They are prevalent, and I'm sure Westmoreland County is not immune. We get them all the time out here. These scrupulous contractors, kind of a segue to what I said before is, an event happens, bad tornado, hail damage on roofs. These people, it's like, I don't know, I'm originally from up north. If you've heard of the spillway with the carp, it's like throwing bread in and these fish out of nowhere. That's these contractors. If you have hail damage or something, they're out from everywhere. Everybody who's never even picked up a hammer in their life is ready to fix your roof and put on the best shingles and underpaper you've ever seen. Be cautious of them. They do not hire them. Follow your instincts, follow the advice we've all gotten throughout the years. You want to get references. You want to verify people's work, past work, get pictures, research them, whatever. Do not fall. The worst scammers I've seen, especially in Westmoreland County, are these door-to-door contractors, these no-name fly-by-nights. And I don't mean to diminish anybody's profession or people that are legitimately trying to make a buck. But there's people out there who unfortunately have their own problems, whether it's drug problems, mental health, financial problems, and they show up in a truck, and the only reason they're trying to get your money is because they owe the person before you all that money back. They didn't do anything, and that's what they're doing. Research these people. Make sure they have a business card, an actual business. In Pennsylvania, one of the most important things we have, the legislature, one of the things they did do, is they created the Home Improvement Fraud Act, and one of the components of that is registration. Anybody who does over a certain amount of work, and it's fairly low, I think it's like $500 or maybe $5,000 a year, has to register with the Attorney General's office. Not everybody's always registered, but if they're doing work, they're supposed to be, and that's a good way to verify. You can go right on the Attorney General's website. It's right on the main page, a link to the Home Improvement consumer fraud section of the Consumer Protection Bureau, where they have all kinds of stuff set up where you can search contractor license, see if they're verified, see if they've renewed their license, if they're in good standing, etc. Use that to your advantage. These people come out of anywhere. Do not use the door-to-door people. Be very cautious if you see out-of-state license plates or out-of-state addresses. That's a very bad sign right away. Do not give them personal information. Do not give these fly-by-night contractors your credit card information, your personal information, whatever, when they tell you, hey, we need to get started on this job, we just need $500, we'll bring the materials. That is a sure-tell scam. You'll never see them again. I'm not going to go too far into depth. The Home Improvement Act is pretty dense, but what I will say about it is it does limit in Pennsylvania what contractors are legally allowed to do. One of the big things is how much they can charge you or ask you to pay up front. There is a limit. In Pennsylvania, I believe it's a third of the contract price. So your contractor should never be asking, and that's pretty much business standard from what I understand in the industry. You're never usually asked to pay up front the whole contract price, nor can you. They're not supposed to. It's a crime if they do. but look at those contracts. Do not give money up front for the whole contract. Pay a third. Do not pay that final payment until they're completely done and you're satisfied with the work, because that's the other thing. I will tell you right now, you lose all of that carrot and stick, that leverage, to ever go after them or ever get anything fixed ever again. If they have all their money, they have no incentive to come back. And it's a sad state of affairs that I even recommend this, but another thing to do, check and see if they have any active court cases, civil or criminal. The Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts, UJS, we call it by acronym, Unified Judicial System, has a portal online you can go to check court cases. I can't guarantee everyone's on there, but a lot of them are. And if you start seeing criminal cases, I'd really tell you to run. But a lot of them, I guarantee, if you click on them, are probably either past theft cases or past home improvement fraud, or you'll even just as good for you to avoid this, you'll see civil cases against them where they've been sued, where judgment's been entered against them. Pay attention to that. Research these people. A company might have a civil judgment. That might not be the end of your relationship. Maybe it's legitimate, maybe it's not. But research them beforehand so you can make an informed decision. Never pay with cash, ever, with home improvement fraud. I know there's a lot of contractors out there who will give you a discount. They don't want to pay the credit card processing fees. But cash is not king. It's king for them because, they don't have to report it for taxes and all that kind of good stuff, and they don't have to pay the processing fees. But what leverage do you have? What documentation do you have at the end of the day that you actually paid them if you handed them $10,000 in cash? What they're going to say is, especially if they're scamming you or an illegitimate contractor, they're going to say, nah, you paid me $5,000. Well, what's your recourse? It's your word against theirs. You don't have any documentation of that. If you have a canceled check that says, first, third, payment for the exact amount you paid them, you're going to know how much you paid them, and they're going to know how much they got when they cashed it. But if it's cash, it's gone. PayPal is the same way. Don't trust a contractor. I've seen this happen. I'm prosecuting several cases right now where a guy got $20,000 of the contract via PayPal. It's good as gone. I'm going to try to get some of it back, but at the end of the day, he has that money unless you convict him or until he agrees to pay it back. That money is PayPal's and that money's his. Don't pay via PayPal. Let's see here. Be careful of the clauses you see in contracts. Make sure there's nothing that say they can't be held liable, that they don't have to have insurance. Just as a general matter, as you guys probably know some of this, make sure that they're required to get permits, inspections, everything. Because if they're a shady or illegitimate contractor, they're not going to do any of that. They're not going to spend a dime of their money or time to go out there and get permits, contact the government, have an inspector come, etc. Let's see here. The Bitcoin ones, real quick. Bitcoin, digital currency. The best recommendation I can give you, and I'll be the first one to say this, I don't understand a lot of it. I have a couple friends who do. I don't. I know enough about it to talk about it. Digital currency, blockchains, all that, where your money's stored online and it's in the cloud. That is a sure tell way of a scam, whether you're investing in it or unless you know what you're doing to invest in it, or you know how you're paying somebody with it, that money is gone. There was a woman who paid money via they got her in North Huntington, they got her to sign up for an account and pay them in Bitcoin. I don't know how it happened. It's miraculous. The detective was able to get like 3/4 of it back. And we're talking about $100,000 she paid to them. He was able to get about $75,000 back. And I felt bad. She was happy, don't get me wrong. I still feel bad there's 25 missing. But if it's going to be between losing 100 or having 75, I guess I'd have to take the 75. But be very careful with that. Funeral scams, just people are deranged and deprived hearts. Scammers troll online papers. Everything's online now, even the newspaper. They look to see who's passed away because they look for estates to get involved in, or they look for houses to burglarize. Be very careful about that because they're expecting nobody to be home. It's a funeral. The family will be gone. That's when they're going to come in, take your jewelry, take your TV. Same way, real quick, going back to these home improvement fraud things. I've seen this happen several times in Westmoreland County. Be very careful. Lock your doors. Keep your front and back door locked. Never keep them both open. One of those types of, it's not really a scam, it's a burglary is what it is you go to answer the front door and they send their coworker around the back. You don't see them while you're talking to them and they're chatting you up about these triple glazed, windows that they've got that are never ever going to allow another piece of your money to be spent because they're 100% energy efficient. And this is the best thing since sliced bread that's going to be installed in your house. His buddy's around back, he's through your door, he's taking all your jewelry, guns, whatever have you, from your house, loading up their truck, and Joe Smith, who's talking to you, yeah, you know what, never mind, we're good, see ya. And they're gone with all your stuff when you go back inside. And that's very dangerous, but it's also can be prevented. Just keep your doors locked, do not let them go around back, be careful who you're home alone with, be very cautious about that, because that's a big scam. Real quick, because I don't want to forget to mention this. I always talk about this. Be cautious of, especially senior citizens, older adults. Anybody and anybody can be anything online, like I said. Be cognizant of what's posted, the designations, the titles given. Anybody can advertise they're a senior-friendly company, or they work with seniors, or they're senior certified. Unless that designation's been audited or given by an accredited agency, it means nothing. All that's doing is try to gain your trust. And get your money, is because they're thinking, hey, it's better I go with you because you work with seniors or you work with retirees, whether it's a investment firm, a lawyer, anything. They put these designations on that mean nothing, so be very protective of that. Don't go with them just because they slap some sort of cute graphic on, a business card or their website that says they're, senior certified. You guys have questions? Anybody have any questions? Anything I missed? Go ahead.
Is there a good place to store your passwords?
There's a lot of, I use one. My wife hates it because all my passwords are long, but I'd rather have that than all my money gone. I use a place called 1Password. It works for my family and I. I keep everything online, or it is online, but it's, there's multiple passwords, one they don't know, one you don't know, so there's never two passwords that can be, no person ever has both passwords, the company or you. It's encrypted, it gives me access on my phone. There's various free and paid ones online. The worst place you can store them, thank God my mother-in-law's not here, but I tell it to her again, is on a notebook on your kitchen table. She has every password written down on there. I don't know why. I've asked her about it. And the crazy part about it is half of them are the same. So, I don't know what protection that gives you, but she keeps them all written down. I think she's gotten better at it, but maybe she hides them behind the fridge now. I don't know. Not that that's any better, but either way, don't write them down. Don't keep them in a notebook. Don't reuse passwords. Don't use passwords that people can guess either. Your dog's name, your kid's birthday, all bad passwords. It's painful. Again, my wife hates it. Create a random password. Use one of those password generators that will create a random password. You'll have to save it somewhere, but at least, it's very, very hard to break one of those passwords that's 16 characters long, 14, 18, whatever characters long, and has symbols, capital letters, lowercase letters, underscores, numbers. It's a pain to put in, but guess what? It's protected and nobody's going to be able to crack it. Yeah. I use a company called 1Password. 1Password. I've been using it forever. There's other ones out there, some that are free. Some operating systems, Apple just came out with their own password manager that's free. There's various free and paid ones out there. If you're going to use a free one, I'd be very cautious of it being free. I hate to say that, but somebody's making money somewhere. There's nothing free in life, as we all know. So I go online, it's literally 1password.com is their website address. That's the one I use, but I'm not endorsing that one any better than any of the other ones. But there's multiple out there that you can store your password in that are completely secure. Yeah. That's another, yeah, I'm glad you said that. Yeah, KeyPass, Bitwarden. Those are the ones that are coming to mind, but those are the ones online that you can store on your password securely. Yeah.
I got something in the mail just a day or so ago, and I think it's a scam, and I brought it with me tonight.
Okay.
It's from West Penn Power, but I just noticed now that it's not got my real name on it. It says Linda Gosser, not Linda Gosser Loesch.
Probably a scam.
So I wanted to
Yeah, sure.
give
Sure.
it to you, and maybe you can get them all.
I probably got one. Maybe I got one too. Go home and check my mail. Anybody else have any questions? Anything you want me to cover? Anything? Well, thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me your time. I appreciate it. Thank you. If the district attorney's, if you need anything, you know how to get a hold of the district attorney's office, online, email us, call us, whatever. We're happy to help in any way, okay? Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Adam Barr.
Thank you.